So here we are with an Xotic Performance head stud set. I've not opened it yet. I figured I might as well just keep it as clean as I can. But I also figured that since the engine is in the frame and the body and everything is out of the way, it's probably going to be my best bet to do the head stud replacement while it's sitting right here. I can access everything fairly well. I'm going to strip, what I need to get the valve covers off and get to all of the head bolts. But as much as these companies don't recommend it, I was also told on the phone that it has been done to replace one bolt with one stud at a time, do the entire torque sequence of that bolt, and then move to the second in the sequence, and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm going to plan on doing. I'm only doing the head studs as a precaution. I don't plan on going all crazy with too much turbo or anything like that. And the truck does have a programmer, but I haven't used it since last summer. And when I did have it, it was just in the tow performance mode. And I actually saw that there was better fuel mileage than in the stock form. So that's my plan, is strip what I have to and get these head bolts replaced with some head studs. I think that's going to make the longevity of the engine much better. Also, you can see that this fuel filter has been bypassed or just plugged off. That's due to the air dog system that I'll be using. So I might just remove that. I'll have to see what I need to do as far as this wiring sensor goes. I don't know, maybe that's just a sending unit of some sort. So I don't know what the ill effects of that will be. But I might just remove it and remove that plug right there and see if I have any type of error codes or not. So that's what I'm working on today. So I am slowly but surely getting to that valve cover, and same thing, I'm just trying to label anything that I can as I take it apart. If there's any question of where it will go, like these two plugs, that's pretty self-explanatory. But when you got a loose wire like this one that could go a foot in any direction, you might want to know that that goes down to that glow plug stud right there. Okay, so I've just been zip tying things out of the way. Zip ties are cheap, mistakes are not. So I'm to the point where I believe that I can just take that fuel rail nut loose and then just take my injector nuts loose, and the whole fuel rail will come off. And then maybe I'll tie this out of the way as well, just to get it out of the way. And then I can start removing the valve cover. There's an upper and a lower, and I don't believe I have to take the upper loose. So I'm going to try just the lower first, and most likely I'll be coming back to this saying, yep, I was wrong. There's something inside the upper one that I have to take loose as well. So that's that. So I figured I would note a couple things. I did plan on being able to just take that nut off right there on the fuel rail and take these fuel lines loose, but I didn't take into consideration that the fuel rail's bolted down right there, and in a couple other spots. So I figured just breaking the lines loose and then covering up the fuel rail was going to be an easier option. Also, with the wire harness, I believe for the injectors between the upper and lower valve cover, odds are I'm going to need to just take the upper off first, then the lower after I disconnect that harness inside. So that's my plan now. So this is a pair of vice grips that have been turned into a slide hammer by just welding a long bolt in this big metal slug. So what I was doing just now was trying to pop that loose just by using a slide hammer. So the stud that I screwed into the top of the valve cover right about here, I have a mix of metric and standard. They're basically dowel pullers from my tool and die days. And I have a slide hammer out back as well that was just threaded on the end, so I could just have a quick replacement tip. So what I was doing was slide hammering, and the silicone gasket was basically just stretching and bouncing back. So instead of hammering a wedge in place and wrecking the surfaces, I was just guiding the small flat blade screwdriver in between the two surfaces as it stretched out, and it got to the point where I could get a larger flat blade in and then pry it loose. But I wanted to note, diesels are notoriously a very dirty engine. I don't know what makes the oil turn so black, but I am very pleasantly surprised how clean it is inside here. That's an awesome deal, awesome news. And so now what I plan on doing is removing this upper harness and working on getting to the rest of the head bolts. It looks like I'm going to need to actually remove the harness and then remove the whole rocker shaft, because I can see the top head bolts are there. The middle row is right here, and then the outer row is here. So I won't even need to use remove the lower valve cover. I'm glad I just started with the upper. I hope you don't mind your new vantage point. I built this real special mount for the camera. It just slides right on in there. I'm recording with an iPad. Well, I'm glad that I've gotten this far. I'm glad that I've taken it down this far, just for simple fact of look at those injectors. They're all full of debris and rust. Oops, sorry about that. And as good as this thing ran and as clean as everything is in there, I'm very glad that I've done this. The rocker shaft is disassembled in one piece, but there's also some evidence of surface rust in here as well. And so I'm going to, before I reassemble this, I have like 10 gallons of new solution for the parts washer. So I'll clean the parts washer real well, and then I'll make sure I clean everything real good before I put it back together and get all that junk and debris off. You'll also notice I did just a few reference zip ties. So I don't know if these are polarity sensitive, and it looked like they pretty much just held their position, but I put a zip tie on the top of every one of the wires. And then I also threw an orange one, same thing. I bet this harness and this harness are identical, but for the sake of just not screwing something up, I threw an orange zip tie on the front, so cylinder 1 and 3 will have the orange zip tie. When I do the other side, I'll do the same reference, and I'll make sure I get this all put back together before I do the other side as well.